Yo, hello Internet. Once again, we meet. How are you? Hope that you're well. Here it's a gray day with some rains, clouds, fog. Today I'm going to talk about future-proofing your strategy. In marketing, you have to consider your strategy. When you're leading marketing projects or managing parts of a project or working as a technical specialist on various elements of a project, specific channels or sub-channels, you have to think of your strategy in order to develop a long-term plan and to carry it out using the tactics most appropriate for that strategy and that plan. So rather than look at very specific tactics today, I'm going to talk about the higher level of the strategy as it fits into the higher level of the plan. So let's start with the big picture. Let's say you are running the marketing for a company. Doesn't really matter if it's an SMB or a large company. It will matter in terms of the scope and the size of your budget and the potential KPIs and business drivers you have to look at and the overall results that you can expect and forecast and that you can work towards. But in terms of the bigger picture, it doesn't really matter what the size of the company is. It matters that you're running the marketing. So, if you're running that marketing, you need to develop a strategy. How do you do that? Well, you can look at existing models, see which one is most relevant to you, copy it and tweak it to your needs. The thing is, if it's not exactly relevant to your particular niche, your particular vertical or horizontal or business, then you shouldn't use a strategy that's not relevant. How do you determine if a strategy is relevant? You research and you see what the competitors in that field have done. And what do you do if there are no competitors? What if you're the first innovative, pioneering model to do something like this? Well, then you need to look at other innovative, pioneering models and see what the people who were first in those models did, or the people who were first in those niches did. Find the one that is either most relevant to you or closest to you, or find one that's completely different from yours, yet has lessons you can learn from it and things you can adapt from it to fit your model. What do I mean? Well, the obvious one is to take something relevant and close to your model and tweak that, right? That's fairly thoughtless, not very difficult to comprehend. Just take something that's as close to your model as possible and make it suit your needs. But what if there isn't something relevant, right? What if there's something, what if you find that the most relevant thing is really not very relevant at all, right? You can only pick up one or two lessons from it and say, okay, well those are small lessons. They won't really help me meet my overall strategy. So then you can look up, and by look up I mean you can Google or you can search in a large language model chatbot or some other device. And by the way, if you use a large language model chatbot like ChatGPT or Bard or anything, you should check multiple sources and you should verify the sources of the answers it gives you because those tools are designed to lie to you. They may not be designed by humans to lie to you, but they've been programmed by humans, and the tools do in fact lie to you on purpose. Part of the reason that is that they've picked up human behavior. Part of human behavior is to not be truthful. So the large language models have picked up on this, and they are very prone to giving you false information, bad ideas, bad strategies, or to falsify the statistics that they show you from the research that they supposedly do for you, right, that they compile and process for you. So you need to verify whatever sources any AI type device is giving you. Now, of course, this is different for, not all AIs are like this, right? This is for specifically chatbots that people use to shortcut their work. So, once you've figured out which model you want to look at, for example, let's say I want to open up, a shop online that sells whatever kind of consumer electronic device, a particular brand for a particular company whose marketing I'm running. Well, if I go and search for a similar product and it doesn't exist, how do I find a suitable model that I can use? Well, again, you can go and search for something similar and tweak that model for the strategy that you're developing, or you can go and find something completely different. Right? There might be somebody who found a really innovative way to market therapeutic horse riding on their ranch, and they may have figured out a brilliant way to build their strategy to reach many people and to get their message out to the target audience in order to get a decent conversion rate. For all you know, they've figured out how to hack legally, white hat hacking, certain lists, right, by marketing to very targeted lists, or sending invites to people who are on similar lists for therapeutic horse riding, or marketing to people who have people in their family who need therapy and who have an affinity for horses, or just going for people who are into horses and may know somebody who needs therapy, or vice versa, people who may need therapy and they don't necessarily even know about horseback riding as an option. What did they do? Did they use the old Airbnb hack? If you don't know what that is, you should look it up. I have links to it in various videos. You can look up my video about the Airbnb hack, which is no longer really a feasible model because the methods they use have mostly been closed off through the various outlets that they used, but it is still possible to do that if you have a decent developer on your staff who can build the appropriate code to do similar functions across other databases where that's possible to do. So for instance, if you were to follow like an Airbnb type model, you're building a network of rooms for rent, right? But you're not building that, you're building something totally different, but you're looking at that kind of model. You would use a database like Craigslist or whatever back in the day to post messages to people who had rented rooms that were listed on Craigslist, and then send them an invitation to join your network, because If they have a habit of renting rooms via Craigslist, they might just rent via your network, which is dedicated to renting rooms, and may have more options for them. And if you make it easy for them to join, strategically, you can count on having a certain conversion rate for people who will sign up for free. You manage to do things like clone their profiles onto your network, and all they have to do is click and approve the information that you have. Then you can count on them quickly joining your network, growing your network reach, and having a decent marketing database to send messages to. Again, this requires some development, but if you work for an SMB or a larger company, you probably have that resource available on your marketing staff or your developer staff that can do the work for you to get it done. Then you start to do a strategic development of email drips. What are email drips? If you don't know, though you probably should if you're watching this and into marketing. Email drips are merely a series of messages that have targeted messaging for every step in the process. So you have a welcome message, you have an about message, you have a top 3 reasons message, but you have special offer messages, and on. You have research messages, all kinds of valuable information and insights. And once in a while, every 3 or 4 emails, maybe 5 emails, you send an offer email. What's an offer email? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's an email that offers a value proposition for somebody to make a purchase, to buy into whatever product or service you will happen to be selling. Now, why is that a valuable piece of insight? Well, mostly because when you do that, you are able to develop not only a network of potential prospects to convert into customers, but you can develop a relationship virtually with these people over time. And why is that important? Well, that's important because the average sale of a product happens when you have about, depending on the product, anywhere from 3 to 10 touch points, and around 7 to 8 being the mean for many products, especially in high tech. People need several, more than several touch points. Basically, they need to give you their brain width, their mind share, whatever you want to call it. They need to give you their time and thought and consideration, which all goes back to the whole marketing funnel of awareness, interest, decision, and action. AIDA, AIDA, like the old opera. Anyway, once you have that AIDA funnel established, your purpose as a marketer is to drive your prospects and leads through that AIDA funnel so that you convert as many as you can from prospects and leads into actually paying customers. Once they are paying customers, you need to focus on your retention funnel. And your retention cycle very much determines the lifetime value of your customers. The lifetime value of your customers will normally far outweigh the initial first-time purchase, because over time, customers who purchase more than once from you are typically going to spend several times the amount over time that they spent in their first-time purchase. So, you want to develop your strategy to target a multiple of revenues generated from each customer that made a first-time purchase. So if the average customer spends whatever it is, $100 on your product, by the way, it doesn't matter what that number is. It could be 1,000, it could be 10,000. Right? But let's just say $100. You want to target potentially having them spend anywhere from $400 to $600 as a baseline before they leave your customer base. And how do you do that? By increasing the number of value-added offers. Now, of course, ideally you never want them to stop being customers, but in reality, most people are not customers of something forever. They will typically get enamored by your first offer, and if they are convinced to buy that, after they make that purchase, they'll go on to possibly consider other value offers. And once they've run dry and they've gone through all of your offers, if you're fortunate enough, you'll be able to keep them on for a second cycle and a third cycle. But eventually, most people will stop to find the usefulness because they've moved on with their life and are doing other things, even as new people are coming into that same market, right? So, for example, 10 years ago, in, let's say 2013, you might have found a lot of people who were purchasing, specific sporting goods on AliExpress and reselling them on Amazon. And you still find people doing the same thing today. The difference is who's doing it. And it's not only that it's bigger players doing it, you still have plenty of small fish entering the market and trying every day to beat the statistics and to become one of the bigger players. Of course, most fade off and eventually will do other things because they'll find that they're not as successful as they dreamed when they started doing it, and that they're more likely to find success, or temporary success, with the ability to float their boat in some other way, on some other network, doing some other job, selling some other product or service, right? So you have to have realistic expectations for the lifetime value of your customers. Now, that said, you will have outliers. You will have people who do stick around for a longer time. You'll have people who fall off right away. You'll have people who are right in the average of your bell curve. Your idea is to target the people that are in the average of your bell curve and around that average. Right? You want to get the 80% of your bell curve and not worry about the outliers at the bottom end and at the top end. Why? Because those outliers at the bottom end and the top end, in most cases, will not be making a significant impact on your overall results. Now, are there some industries or niches where the top end, where the outliers on the upside do make a difference significantly? Yes, there are. But even though they may, it is usually still very rare for those people to be worth investing significant resources into remaining top outliers. Why? Because they're usually already sold on your products and services. They have a certain affinity or loyalty to your brand. That's why they've chosen to be outliers. Not consciously saying I'm an outlier, but they've chosen to buy from you repeatedly, far more than the average person. And they're probably going to do so for as long as they're in that business. Again, that doesn't mean you can't have things for them like a VIP club or something else to give them special offers because they are outliers. But the amount of time you spend investing in that should be carefully calculated so as not to outweigh the amount of time you're spending marketing to the bulk of your bell curve of distribution. And by the way, whether you use a normal distribution or a Laplace distribution, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you focus on the bulk. This would be the first standard deviation or the first Laplace distribution, which is where the majority of your customers will be and even a bit more than the first. Right, somewhere to around the 80th percentile is where you want to be focused on. All right, somewhere from around 20 to 80% or 10 to 90 at the outer edges, and not worry about the 90 to 100s or the 91 to 100s, and not worry about the 0 to 10s. Because again, the 0 to 10s, well, they're definitely not going to make an impact, right? At least not until you convince them to become part of the norm. And the 91s to 100s, they really don't need your encouragement. They know what they need. They're going to go get it. Probably from you, if you're good at selling them what they want and delivering what they expect. And so they're going to keep being customers, whether you offer them a special offer or not. But still, you can have special offers for them. Just keep it in proportion so that you're not wasting resources on people that really don't need all that extra encouragement. If you have those extra budget dollars to encourage any group, it should be to convince the group in the middle, right, and especially those slightly below the average, to move up and get to the average so that your overall baseline average can increase. Why is that important? Well, let's look at a very current example, okay? Whether you like the network or not, a perfect example to demonstrate is X, formerly known as Twitter, right? Elon Musk purchased X, or purchased Twitter, and rather immediately implemented his infamous, or famous, depending on how your take on it is, his $8 a month charge for the blue badges. Now, this upset a lot of people who had blue badges before and who wanted to keep them without having to pay $8. The only thing is, he made it a requirement for people, whether they had verification before or not. He made it a virtual requirement to pay the $8, like it or not. And when he did that, he made it virtually impossible for anybody, even if they were a large organization, to get the verification that they wanted unless they paid him the $8. Now, was it possible for certain organizations to get that blue check mark even without paying the $8? Well, nominally, yes. There were some institutions that had their check marks verified if they were, let's say, governments, or certain people in politics, or massive institutions that are well established. They kept their check marks, and they had their color changed appropriately according to the new color scheme. There's blues, there's yellows, there's grays, right? Depending on what status your profile or X channel has. And the price was $8, and it was fixed. $8 a month, pay per year, so $96 per year. For those who haven't noticed, the price has gone up significantly. It is, it's not a fortune, but it is certainly not $8 a month. All right, so if it was $96 a year at first, the price is more like $120 a year now. And depending on what currency you pay in, etc., it could be even more than that. What does that mean? That means that they realized that by having a significant amount of users who pushed the standard up, making the $8 a month checkmark a viable option if you wanted to have a better distribution of your tweets or messages or whatever they're called. Once that bulk of distribution had a significant number, and it does relatively to what it was before, then it would be easy to slowly or quickly raise the prices. And very quietly, that's exactly what X has done. So there's an example of a strategy in marketing that so far is working, at least in terms of KPIs and business drivers. Will it work in terms of profitability? That's another issue, and we'll talk about that at another point in time. Until then, happy trading.